Let's talk about that. Then you expected it. You had the mindset for success. You knew and you had visualized it. But the things you drew on were the things from your childhood and your culture, like the White Sunday, like the stuff in church and standing up and singing as a family. What do you say to Pacific Islanders who get to that junction and then they kind of, we've seen it, eh? People get to that junction and they say, especially down here in Australia and New Zealand, I think that we're less brazen and less confident in, and we're a bit scared to jump over to the line of arrogance. So what do you got to say to people who are scared to kind of walk on eggshells on that line of confidence and pride versus arrogance?
Oh, yeah, that's a really good question. And I remember our discussion on that when we first just started chatting up. And really, one, let me start by saying this. It doesn't matter what race you are, what color, what creed, where you live geographically. Public speaking is a top 5 fear. So I can understand why people would be tentative to speak. But in terms of walking into what I call your destiny and having any hesitation into doing that, whether it be in speaking, becoming an entrepreneur, launching your own business, getting into a field that no Polynesians or someone that you've never, ever seen do anything like that. Because all of us that are Polynesian, we have uncles, aunties all over the place that are pastors and public speak. But, not many do we see do it on a corporate level or a sports level or the law firms, United States Secret Service, Los Angeles Police Department, San Francisco PD, and then within the Asian law enforcement, the national, like you don't see guys that or girls or women that look like us that are paid to go and talk about how to be successful in that. And that just takes some major audacity, in which case I talk about to all of the industries and my one-on-one clients and everywhere I go, it's like, why not you? If this is what you feel, either that you have been blessed to do, or that if you're not a person of faith, and then you just feel like in your heart, this is your calling, go out there and take a swing. Go try it out. Go try it out, because of the fact that, believe me, we have our haters, our doubters, our critics, and our family that tell us, no, stay in the safe lane, do this and do that. But our own self-doubt, most of the time, are the things that hinder us from taking action on our dreams, hopes, and aspirations and moving forward. Because it's not like none of us that are doing what you're doing with your podcast or what I do on the Hollywood radio show. How many times do I walk in my Hollywood radio studio and go, dang, what am I doing here? It's like I'm interviewing this millionaire on the Coach V show, a Tongan dude named William. It's like I have those emotions. I have those doubts as well. But two things. Doubt is just it is just an alert for you to up your game, to better your preparation. Doubt doesn't mean you can't do it, right? That's what doubt is. Doubt's telling you, hey, this is real. Make sure you're prepared. That's what doubt tells you. But in spite of the doubt, in spite of the fear, in spite of the self-doubt, the negativity that you may hear around you, in spite of that, everyone that you see that is successful or doing what you do, they still feel the same thing, baby. But despite that, they kept on doing and going forward, failing forward, succeeding forward, and progressing along the way.
That's awesome, man. So where did you get this level of self-confidence and belief? So you're a migrant into the States from Tonga?
Yeah, man, I grew up in Pomona, California, baby. And in the 90s, Pomona, California, during the cocaine time here in the States, Miami was the #1 murder capital of the country. Miami, Florida. If you've seen Miami Vice, that's what I'm talking about. All of that comes from that era, the 90s. And then East Palo Alto, where a lot of Usos and Tongans, they live in the Bay Area, was #2 in America. In America, East Palo Alto. And then so Palo Alto, where Stanford University is right across the freeway from there. Pomona, where I lived, was #3. So there's no half-stepping. And I was an athlete, so there's two things. One is because of the fact that I grew up playing sports. I never could afford it until I hit high school. My last 4 years, it was free in high school. But every time that I could play in a free program somewhere, I played sports. That helped me big time with my confidence. And then 2, man, in the hood, if you don't speak up or walk with some confidence, because all the Bloods and the Crips in my neighborhood, they'd see me, the Crips will see me wearing red, but that's my school uniform. And they'll be like, hey, what's up, young brother? Do your thing, man. We'll be there watching you on Friday night. So then I understood that there's a value to being who it is that I am as a person. And not just because of the fact that I played sports or because I rolled with the Halafa boys, Tongan Gangsta Crip. You know, we have all that all over Southern California. But because of the fact that I'm 5'10", 220 pounds now. I was 5'10", 185. Do you think they're going to pick on the big old 6'4", 300-pound Samoan? No, they go like this. They go, what are you looking at? And they look at this dude, right? So I got to be ready to roll. And even though I've gotten my butt whipped plenty of times, I was known in my neighborhood. I've got my butt whipped up plenty of times, walking home by myself, by a Mexican crew or a black crew that tried to jump me. And they were like, I was like, bro, man, I know your cousin, Tyrone. And I was like, oh yeah, V, what's up, man? And because I got my butt whipped and I walked that way again anyway, that's where that confidence comes from. It's like, yes, the consequences of this may be that I get hurt or fail, but the regret of walking another way, I can't live with that. I can't live with that. So that's where it comes from.
So paint us a picture for those of us here in Australia, New Zealand, and other outside of the States. You said there's a lot of Samoans and Tongans up at East Palo Alto, in the Bay Area. There's also a heavy concentration in LA. But what is it like to be a Pacific person in the States? That gang stuff, and that's what we see on movies. It's kind of surreal to us. So what's it like living in this as a Pacific person?
So I do have a lot of family in Onehunga, right? I have family in Brisbane. So I hear about the hood, and I think that is very similar because ignorance and misunderstanding is a socioeconomic aspect. It's just not an aspect that has to do with culture and upbringing. Let me premise that.
Right.
In saying that, I do feel that the Polynesians are like the middle ground of everything. So say if you would have, because I've been to the prisons to visit my family, if you have, everybody rides their own car in the pen here in the jails. So if you have the white supremacists on this side, and then, the black power folks on this side, and you have the essays or here, like the Polynesians, they just leave them alone. And it's the same thing on the streets. Now, if you got beef and you're a punk, you're going to get dealt with. The law of the jungle is the same everywhere. I believe it's the same there, correct? But the thing that we at Island Block Radio and the rest of us that's trying to, like you, pull up our youth, my nonprofit, we have coached or trained over 3,500 kids for free in our free camps, is that we understand that there is a value put into this Polynesian mystique of family, togetherness, village, strength in numbers, absolute loyalty, ohana, they call it on these Disney cartoons. We understand that the number one movie star on the planet is Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, right? And during one of our Island Block radio shows is one of the writers for his new sitcom. That's like, there's that sitcom Fresh Off the Boat. Have you heard of that? Is that down in Australia? So he put in for a bid for his sitcom, and it got funded like that. So there is a value and an understanding, and also a reverence, because Polynesian brothers will usually whip your butt, and all of the Polynesian sisters, right? There's a reverence there, right? But then there's also this respect for family and understanding how because when we accept the Meulis or the Uliulis or the African Americans, I mean, they know they're like us. They are us here in the States. They know that either we're all good or we're all bad, right? So there's a certain level of respect there and reverence. And I think Polynesians do just respect other folks, right? They do their deal. They do their deal. So here in the States, I get a lot of respect. In the 90s, Viliami Tuivai, people would struggle with that. But now you turn on the TV and there's like Samoan, Tongan, Hawaiian, Micronesian, Guamanian. There are players all over sports, all over movies, right? They're everywhere now, right? So it's not something where they're just like, when I got here in the 80s, they're like, Tonga, where's that? Is that in the middle of Africa? No, that's Togo, bro. That's not. But, Americans are not good at geography, period. U.S. geography, let alone world geography, right? But for us to come from what I hear you talk about, from the vastness of the Pacific, and now all the studies showing that before Christopher Columbus even had rowboats that could we were sailing inner island. So there's a lot of respect out there. And here in the States, we get a lot of love, respect, and reverence. And we're grateful for that.
Awesome, man. You talked about, people getting up there. Like, it wasn't normal for a Viliami Tuivai to be on mainstream media or, at the front of stages, on top of stages with heaps of people following you. Now there's people like Justin Sewer, yourself, they're in the States who are on these stages. What was it like for you building a personal brand, knowing that wasn't really the norm back in 2007? Because in 2020, the likes of Gary Vee and those big influencers are saying, man, document, create content, create a personal brand. Without a personal brand, you're not really going to get that far in the digital age. You've been doing it since 2007, so you're a trailblazer in that regard. What was it like building a personal brand in the context like 2007?
Well, I was working and getting paid by someone else, which I do tell anyone out there that's trying to be a speaker, work on the side gig part-time that'll pay you full-time, like speaking, and don't alienate your main job. So that was something that I was juggling when I first started. But just in terms of building a personal platform, there are basic fundamentals to every industry. And in our industry, to survive and to thrive, being able to do video, just being a speaker doesn't cut it. You need to be a speaker. I mean, we connected because I posted stuff. Andrew, I've never seen you like one of my posts on LinkedIn, right? But we're connecting. Connecting because you don't know who's watching. And now that's flipped to you don't know who's watching. And now you must expect that everyone is watching. So it's different now, right? Everyone is watching. And now if you're good, they'll watch longer. Really now the number one commodity in our society is the eyeballs and attention. Right? So now if you can bring some value, you will carve out a spot in the marketplace in whatever industry that you're doing. And whether it is you have a bakery or you have your own business company, you're doing a shop car, doing services, or you're online doing some type of services there. If you bring the value, you will carve out your niche. But in terms of what you're asking, I mean, it's not if I should be doing this online content, posting stuff on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, my personal Facebook, YouTube. It's a must because that's really the social proof that gets you these big gigs. Like Gary Vee gives all his stuff away. And then the dude makes $1 million a day every time he speaks. Right. And then Brendan Burchard, he does it where in terms of, he doesn't speak in terms of principles, but he does courses, online coaches, where the speaking for him is where he gets paid to actually promote. That's something. Let me say that again. That when you're actually speaking, not for the money, but so that you can promote your brand and introduce your brand so that people will consider everything else that you're doing. Online courses, seminars, masterminds. So that's where this space is going. And I'm way behind it, but I'm going to do everything it is that I can to make sure I cover the basic fundamentals and move forward as the great giants in my industry are doing.